So now that Congress has passed a stimulus deal, the legislation will land on President Trump's desk. He still has to sign the measure, but his administration is already making plans to distribute the stimulus checks to Americans. Let us make our way over to the White House now, where Paula Reid is standing by to dig in a little deeper into the process. We know that the president, Paula, really didn't have a whole lot of involvement in these negotiations. He sort of stepped back from a lot of things in the last few weeks. So this is really Congress sort of hammering it out into the wee hours of the morning. Does the administration consider the relief package a win for the president? And when is the president expected to sign it into law?
Well, Anne-Marie, the president is expected to sign this later this week. He is headed to Palm Beach tomorrow, where he will spend Christmas and New Year's. So it's likely he could potentially sign this before he goes or while he's in Florida. Earlier today, Secretary of the Treasury Steve Mnuchin, he did try to frame this as a win for the president when really the president has had no public facing role in this, certainly not in the past few months. Though the Treasury Secretary did say that anyone who is eligible for money can expect to see it as early as next week. And we know that this legislation, Anne-Marie, has followed this very long, circuitous, at times torturous path. Democrats really played hardball up until Election Day, though they have denied that they were just trying to thwart President Trump from having a victory. But if you look at what was actually agreed on, it's very similar to a $1 trillion proposal that was put forward by Senate Republicans back in July. At the time, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she balked at that proposal, but it looks very similar, and it does appear that President-elect Biden has been really a moderating, at times mediating force in these discussions.
All right, so what has the president been doing? Well, he's been focused on what he's been tweeting about, what he's been talking about since before the election, what he considers fraud in the national election. And we are learning that President Trump met with his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and multiple congressional lawmakers yesterday. Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said on Twitter that the meeting focused on fighting back against voter fraud. We know already that the Trump campaign has repeatedly launched legal challenges to the election, has repeatedly lost over and over again in court. What on earth could they have been talking about in that meeting? What do we know?
Well, it's not unusual to see Rudy Giuliani here at the White House, but yesterday and across the past really 10 days or so, the president has been meeting with like-minded allies to brainstorm new ways to try to challenge the 2020 presidential election outcome. So far, though, Anne-Marie, as you noted, these efforts, they've been fruitless. But he's also talked to a former National Security Advisor, Mike Flynn, who reportedly floated the idea of imposing martial law. CBS News has also learned that the president considered appointing Sidney Powell, one of his attorneys, who has floated conspiracy theories about the elections, very controversial. He considered appointing her special counsel to investigate election fraud. Now, we heard the Attorney General, Bill Barr, one of the president's most loyal advisors, say yesterday that he did not actually think that was necessary. Now, interestingly, last night, Rudy Giuliani, he was doing an interview with Newsmax, speaking to Sean Spicer, and he really tried to put distance between himself and Sidney Powell. He insisted she is not part of the legal team, that she does not speak for the president at all. And it's interesting, Anne-Marie, the question is, okay, is this just a turf war, which is common among the president's dozens of attorneys? Or is Sidney Powell actually sort of too far out there, even for Rudy Giuliani, when it comes to some of these claims about election fraud? So clearly the president is listening to several different like-minded allies, some people floating conspiracy theories, but even among themselves, there doesn't seem to be a unified front.
Yeah, well, you know, you say that he has been kind of meeting with and surrounding himself with like-minded folks. Maybe, if according to what Axios is reporting, it's because he sort of turned against many top advisors in the days following the election. What is the atmosphere like inside the West Wing at this point?
Well, of course, he did lose the election, even though that's something he is not totally accepted. People in the West Wing, many of them, are worried about where they're going to find their next job. It has been difficult for some, particularly the more public figures in the Trump administration, to find a landing spot once they leave. So they are concerned about that, as it's just a few weeks between now and the inauguration. And there is also a lot of concern about the president's refusal to accept these results and some of these theories he's floating and some of the people he's surrounding himself with. So Politico reports that President Trump and President-elect Joe Biden have gone longer
without sitting down together than any other outgoing and incoming administration since 1928. Have we heard anything from the White House on whether or not the president plans to actually sit down with the president-elect and, you know, maybe prepare him for the job that is coming his way?
No. I got nothing. No, they've been
That's
asked
the short answer.
repeatedly. Yeah, repeatedly they've been asked. Kayleigh McEnany's been asked. No, there's been absolutely nothing publicly presented about an invitation, about a meeting, about that peaceful transition of power. The president has mostly used his bully pulpit to really focus on these allegations, mostly unsubstantiated allegations about voter fraud. He's very upset with a lot of politicians across the country who he believes he has supported and have not helped him in this, again, so far fruitless pursuit. Even though we are in the middle, the grips of a pandemic, we've also been hit by an unprecedented hack, both private and public entities. The president, really the only thing we hear from him is this effort to contest the election outcome.
He did suggest that China was behind that unprecedented attack and not Russia. You forgot about that, but that was only in tweet form. So, Health Secretary Alex Azar appeared on CBS this morning today. He's about to get his coronavirus shot, I think, later on today. Our colleague Jamie Yukas asked him, you know, what he would have to say to healthcare workers who have not received the vaccine yet, despite the fact that we saw sort of a parade of politicians being immunized, and the secretary himself is on the schedule to be immunized as well. Here's what he had to say.
As leaders, it's really important that we demonstrate our confidence in the vaccine, because we've seen a surge in vaccine confidence. Now over 80% of Americans say they would take the vaccine, and that's an incredible improvement. Literally, the vaccines are approved under my name. I committed early on that I would get vaccinated publicly on TV to demonstrate my complete and utter confidence in the independence of the FDA's approval process of safe and effective vaccines, and that's what I'm doing.
So this appears to be sort of the primary way that many officials and politicians are trying to encourage people to get vaccinated when the possibility arises for them. The president says, I believe he said that he didn't want to sort of push ahead of anyone else in line, that he would get the vaccine, just, you know, not now. So then what is the White House doing then to instill confidence in the general public that this vaccine is safe and effective and people should take it?
Well, what you saw right there with Secretary Azar, that's part of it. It's this PR blitz putting out a lot of their top health officials to encourage people to take this vaccine. They also, of course, had the vice president out doing a very highly publicized vaccination himself. You also have seen the Surgeon General has been out, someone we don't actually hear from very often. He's done a lot of TV over the past several days, encouraging all Americans, and particularly minority communities. He's trying to encourage them to trust this science. Now, yesterday, the Surgeon General, he also talked about the fact that obviously there's someone missing from this PR blitz, and that's the president. And he was asked about why the president isn't getting the vaccination. Now, the Surgeon General said because the president had the monoclonal antibody therapy several months ago as part of his treatment for COVID, that he is not necessarily someone who should get the vaccine immediately. Now, he said that you should wait several weeks after you get that. It's been several months now since the president had that therapy. Now, there are some reports that the president could potentially still be receiving the benefits of that monoclonal antibody therapy that he received. Right now, his medical team is reportedly, according to the White House, telling the president that he doesn't need that vaccine. But look, there's a larger problem here, Anne-Marie, and that's people don't necessarily trust a lot of these officials. Vice President Mike Pence, even the Surgeon General, Secretary Azar. These are people who have given false statements at times and also really bungled the handling of this pandemic. So if they are the ones out there telling people, don't worry, you can trust me, I think a lot of people are saying, well, why can I trust you now? Now, there are a lot of people who trust the science. They trust Dr. Fauci. They trust other people. They'll still get the vaccination. But if they're trying to convert the hearts and minds of people who have doubts, it's unclear if this is going to be a successful strategy, given who the messengers are.
That is so true. Paula Reid at the White House, thank you so much, Paula.